All right, Strength Faction. So we've done our program design presentation. We've done our one-on-one assessment and goal setting session. And now we're going to go into our personal orientation. So the order really would be the one-on-one assessment and goal setting session, this, and then program design when we actually go to write a program for someone. And everything that we're getting from that one-on-one assessment and goal setting session and everything I'm about to show you that we get from the personal orientation session make up the information that was on the sheet when you met your new client. And this is, in my opinion, one of the most important things that we do for not only efficiency, but for being able to put people in the best positions to be successful from the get-go in our program. And before we jump in, let's just do a quick reminder. We have those 3 goals over the lifetime of our clients. We have to keep those top of mind always. They are consistency, crush goals and have fun doing it, competency, and independence. And this is just one more layer on that cake of how we make that happen. So our personal orientation, we have a few goals. We want to make the individual that's coming in feel really welcome, and not just feel welcome, but let them know that they are welcome. And this time around, whereas before we pointed out people and put names with faces, we're actually introducing them to the coaches and members of the gym because they're going to be on the floor working during this session. From there, we're going to get a resting heart rate. We're going to teach the warm-ups, which are going to provide a lot of context. We'll talk more about that in a second. And then we're going to teach them how we coach squatting, hinging, push-ups, inverted rows. And the reason why I say how we coach is because most of our clientele trained somewhere else prior. They aren't brand new to training. So we're never like, oh, this is how you squat. We explain, for sure, this is how you squat, and they'll get that from what we're going to go through, but we never approach it from like, oh, well, whatever you were doing before, that's wrong. We start by looking at what they're doing, and then, okay, let's give this a try. And we're going to teach them how we coach, which is going to be our cueing, our language. And we explain to them that, yes, this is for you and teaching you how to be successful in our program, but it's also for you to learn the language that we'll use so that when one of our coaches says to you, tall and tight, reach, drive, different cues that we'll be using, that when someone says that in the morning, or someone's coaching you in the morning, someone's coaching you in the evening, they should, if they're doing their jobs correctly, which they are, they should be using the same exact language. So we need to get on the same page about what that is. The next thing is that this session is not a one-on-one session. It used to be, and that was a mistake because that was probably done with me. In the past, it was absolutely done with me. So now they've seen me for a one-on-one assessment and goal setting session. They've seen me for a personal orientation session, and then they're going to work with other people. So they've established a great relationship with me, and then there's a good chance that I won't even be coaching them for the majority of their sessions. It's not good. So we get the whole staff involved. Everyone's going to do a component. Everyone that's there is going to do a component of this personal orientation session. So they get reps with different people, and that's going to give them a pretty good idea of what it's like to work in a semi-private training environment. And then before they go home, we're going to set expectations of how things work daily, weekly, monthly, with regards to their training, make sure that any questions that they still potentially have get answered, and really just make sure that they have no fears about what's next. They're like, oh, okay, cool. I totally get this. So the resting heart rate. This is new for us. We've done some cardiovascular testing with people in the past, but it wasn't a staple that we did with every single person. But maybe 4 months ago, if even, I don't know, not that long ago, we decided to use a pulse ox, because if someone walks in the gym, they're brand new, and we're like, all right, yeah, go in the bathroom and put this weird, strap around your chest and come back, and we're going to be getting your heart rate the whole time. It's kind of invasive, a little awkward whenever we just met. So instead, we're like, hey, we're going to get a quick resting heart rate on you. You're just going to have you lay back in the chair that you see here in the background, one of the chairs that you'll see here in the background. Slide this thing onto your finger. It's Bluetooth. It transmits to an iPad or a phone, and then we're going to watch it for like the next 5 minutes, and we're going to write down, we're going to watch it for the next 5 minutes, and we're going to write down the lowest heart rate that you hit the entire time. So 5 minutes. Our goal is to see less than 65 beats per minute for general population in this context. The reason why I say that is right above that. Understand that environment plays a huge factor. We have had people come in and be at like 96, which you're like, oh my God, that person needs to see a doctor before they can train. But there's definitely the possibility and a strong possibility for some white coat syndrome to be going on, even though, as you can see, that's me in the background there, I'm very comfortable. If you're not familiar with the layout of our gym, looking out in front of me, I'm seeing the whole gym. This is not like a closed off room, low light. You know, there's bright lights above you. It's probably loud music playing, people around. So it's pretty hard to relax, especially if you're a little bit nervous to be in our environment to begin with. And that's why we have that. It's still pretty high heart rate of 65 beats per minute. But we do consistently see people come in with heart rates above that. And there's going to be, you know, training considerations for that. And those are laid out in the program design presentation from a couple weeks ago. But 5 minutes, kick back, put the pulse ox on. You can see I have it there on my left hand, your right on the screen, and record the lowest heart rate that we get over 5 minutes. After that, we move on to our warm-up. So our warm-up, as I said in this intro here, it's going to provide a lot of context. This is a big teaching opportunity for us. And that is really every day, not just on day one, but every day to practice positions and application of different things during the warm-up. So a more mindful approach to our warm-ups than, you know, maybe they've used in other places they've gone. We're going to every day use solid breathing technique, go over tall and tight posture, tension, differentiation of body segments like spine versus hips, foot position, movement patterns, and when done correctly, when we teach the warm-ups and use them correctly, it does make coaching easier because there's carryover into every single thing that we do. So this is not necessarily the exact warm-up that we use with every single person when they start, but this is a pretty good general warm-up that we can accomplish all the things I had laid out on the previous screen. So 90-90 wall breathing, which is what you see pictured here. So this is just a good general position to put people in that puts their hips in line with their ribs in line with their hips, and teach them how to get into a good exhaled position. So you can see Coach Jeff here working with Ashley and Brett, and he's talking to Ashley about getting her ribs down when she exhales, and her husband Brett on the other side of him, and working with them through that. So we use this, and this is really just a good positioning drill before we get into the more active stuff. After that, go into roll and reach. And we'll do that for 3 to 5 reps per side. So now we're getting into a rolling pattern, a supine rolling pattern. Then we go to lumbar lock T-spine rotation for 3 to 5 breaths on each side. Then we're going to cat-cow, 2 to 3 cycles of like up, down, cycling a full breath at each end. And this is the first like really big context provider in terms of this is what it feels like to move with your spine. And we'll be explaining at this point, you know, there's not a whole lot of times that we're really going to do this in the gym, but you get to feel both extremes. When we're in that cat position, big rounded back, that's our sad dog position. Once we drop low into cow, that is our macho man position. These are two positions that almost all of the time we want to avoid in the gym, and rather we want to find the middle, which is where we're going next. We're going to find a good quadruped tall and tight position. Again, like the 90-90 wall breathing, we're going to get those hips in good alignment with our ribs, ribs facing hips, hips facing ribs, and we're going to rock back and forth, continuing with providing context. This is what it feels like to move through our hips and lock in our spine to that tall and tight position. This is going to transfer to things like squats, deadlifts, bent over rows. I mean, just about everything that we do in the gym, with the exception of bench press. There's not really anything where we would want to actually move through our spine. And I say bench press because of like getting a little bit of an arch set up for a proper bench press. Outside of that, quadruped rocking teaches us the basics of what it feels like to move through our hips and not through our spine for just about everything else that we do in the gym. Then we move on to push-up position plank with shoulder taps. And the reason why shoulder taps is in parentheses, like in the beginning, we're just teaching a solid push-up position plank. So now we're continuing with that tall and tight and adding a little bit more tension into play now. So we're getting full body tension to lock that in. If someone's more advanced, then we can add shoulder taps where they're going to slowly lift one hand, tap their opposite shoulder, put it back down, slowly lift the opposite hand, tap the other shoulder. They're either holding that solid push-up position plank, tall and tight, and breathing for 10 to 30 seconds, or if they're doing the shoulder taps, doing that for 5 on each side. Then we're going to leopard crawl. So now, not just moving through the hips, but moving through the shoulders as well in a quadruped position, crawling forward, backwards, for about 5 yards each direction. If someone can't control this with a leopard crawl yet, we can do a baby crawl. If they can't control that yet, we can just do some like one hand, one leg liftoffs, just from a quadruped position. But we're again teaching them how to move their limbs while not having any kind of extraneous movement going on at their spine. And we start working our way up to our feet. We're going to go half kneeling active hip flexor, 3 to 5 breaths. And again, now we're in a half kneeling position. We're once again reinforcing tension, belt buckle up, that, ribs are facing hips, hips are facing ribs, and using breathing here to get a little bit of a stretch at this time. From there, we work our way up further to our feet. Now we're doing squat with rotation and extension. So we are reverse patterning a squat. So I talked about foot position. This is where we would show, to get set up for this. This is how we set our feet for a squat. So it's going to make it easier in a little bit when we go to teach the squat. So we're going to go over that first. We're going to pull ourselves down into a good squat position. We're going to work on that tall and tight position, add some thoracic rotation and a reach in there on each side. Then we're going to keep hanging on to both our toes and do a little bit of a hamstring stretch, drive those hips up, pull ourselves back down to the squat. And from there, we move on to cross crawl. So now we've worked our way to our feet. We're getting into some gait. Cross crawl is where we're going to step forward, drive one of our knees up high and connect it to our opposite elbow, but we're not trying to crunch down to get to that. We're trying to stay tall and tight and get that cross connection as we walk. So now we're challenging our tall and tight posture, tension, everything with a bit of a walk. And then we'll point towards the a whiteboard, if you want to call it that, I don't know, like a poster board, where we have a bunch of field drills on there. So it could be things like lateral shuffle, butt kicks, high knees, skipping variations, running, whatever it may be. Pick 3 to 5, get after them, get to work. So now we're getting more into the kind of like post-activation potentiation type side of things, really getting fired up. And more than anything, it's like the actual like warming up component of our warm up, getting our heart rate up a little bit, getting ready to get to the next thing, which is work. Once we've done that, it's really easy, like I said, to go into our squat, because we've gone over, how to set our feet. We've reverse patterned the squat with rotation and extension. But now we're going to look at loading it. So we'll do, whatever we need to do, a quick reminder on width, foot position. We'll get into our mantra, which is tall and tight, and then RSD, reach, spread, drive. So we're going to start tall and tight. We're going to reach our hips down and back. The angle of, how straight down or reaching back a little bit more we're going to go for with our hips is dependent on the type of load we're using, right? So if we're using something that's out in front of us, like a reaching plate squat or a front squat, our hips are going to go more down than back. If we are doing like a low bar back squat, which we're not really doing with the general population, but if we were, our hips would reach a bit more back than so much down. So we'll go over the reach, we'll go over spreading the floor, and we'll go over driving the floor away to come back up. Not going to go into extreme detail here on that stuff any more than I really just did, because all of this is the movement lessons that were back in the prep week. So if any of that sound like, what in the world are you talking about? Probably missed those, or you need a reminder, go back, watch them, and that will help a lot. Finding tension, that's also in that video. And really our spectrum here, our goal with this is to figure out where we can actually train them in their first program. So we might say, you've trained before, how do you feel with the goblet squat? Have you done it before? They're like, yeah, okay, let's see it. And really what we're doing is we're just going to see where they can actually train with success, that we can put some intensity into it. So something that we could actually load up. So if they're pretty green to this, maybe they're doing reaching plate squat. They're getting past that, they're on to goblet squat. If they pass our strength standard, which is 24 kilo kettlebell squatted for 8 quality reps, then they're on to the Zercher or the safety bar squat. Maybe they're on to front squat, but more than likely it's Zercher, safety bar, and then eventually they can work towards the front squat. But our goal is to figure out, are they passing, first off, can they squat? Can they squat well? Then are they beyond the strength standard? If not, we know we're probably reaching plate squat or goblet squatting. And then if they are beyond that, like what of those 3 lifts there, Zercher, safety bar, front squat, puts them in the best position to be successful with some intensity. After the squat, We might go to the hinge or deadlift. Maybe we decided, hey, we're going to go to upper body and give their lower body a break for a minute. But if we went to the deadlift, we go over our deadlift warm-up, cat-cow, tall kneeling stability ball rollout, RNC, PVC, RDL. Another, like, how does yours look now? Rather than assume that someone, can't deadlift, let me tell you everything I know. It's like, you've deadlifted before, right? Cool. We're going to do a kettlebell deadlift. Let's see how it looks. Then we'll make sure that we have our mantra here, tall and tight, reach, drive, just like the squat. That's back in the movement videos from the prep week. And then we'll look at kind of the spectrum of, do they need to go back to the handcuff hinge? If they're good, they can kettlebell deadlift. Are they beyond our strength standard? Which originally here, this slide is not incorrect. Originally, our standard was 48 kilo kettlebell deadlift for 8 quality reps. But we've actually switched it. I need to update this slide. We switched it to a 60 kilo kettlebell deadlift for 8 quality reps. Reason being, 60 kilos is 132 pounds, which is the heaviest kettlebell that we have, number one. Number two, that's only 3 pounds off from having 45s on each side of a barbell. That's going to have pretty good carryover to saying, yeah, this person's ready to go do some barbell deadlifts. So if they pass that, we would go to the barbell RDL. If they're really competent, then maybe we're working on rack pulls or block pulls, hex bar, and then working towards our full range deadlift. But the big thing in this session is figure out best position for them to train successfully with some intensity, make notes about that so that it makes writing their program very, very, very easy. Push-up, how does yours look now? Tall and tight position, it's a moving plank. Sometimes we'll have to correct arm position on people, so we'll use like, if you need to push someone away from you, or if you were walking around the corner in the city and all of a sudden, oh my God, we're going to collide, you put your hands up to like, not knock that person over, but like defend yourself in terms of like catch them. You wouldn't shoot your elbows way out to the sides like we sometimes see people do push-ups, or imagine your car broke down. You wouldn't shoot your elbows way out to the side. You'd have them in, just off your sides where you're nice and strong. Same thing for your push-up, it's a moving plank. And then really we're making sure they own the push-up position plank. For a lot of people, modified push-ups, if they're beyond that, regular push-ups. Our strength standard here is mid-shin modified push-ups. That's a barbell in a rack set to mid-shin height. If they can do 8 quality reps, preferably for multiple sets, then they can handle, they're able to do enough volume at that intensity that they're probably ready to actually get some volume from the floor at this point. Based on what we've seen people have success with over the years that says, yeah, this person's ready to go on and handle some volume from the floor. And then we get to inverted row. How does yours look now? Tall and tight, it's a moving plank again. And we just teach the inverted row. I mean, this is so scalable in terms of we want to make it harder. We walk the feet in and lower the handles. We want to make it easier. We walk the feet backwards. Really, we look at just making sure that they're good here, watching that they're not shooting into like Macho Man as they come up or Sad Dog. If we're going to go beyond this, maybe with some more advanced people, we'll teach a 3-point row. And the strength standard here is that we want to see someone be able to do about a 30-ish degree inverted row for 8 quality reps, preferably for multiple sets, before we let them go on and work on chin-ups. We have a lot of people that come in and say, oh yeah, I'd love to get my first pull-up, my first chin-up, whatever. But there's no point in having someone grab a hold of a bar and pull, or put up, 100 pounds of band tension to help them get over the bar if they can't do 8 quality reps, again, preferably for multiple sets from about 30 degrees. So that's our strength standard there to work on to chin-up variations. After they get through that, we give them a circuit of the 4 exercises that we just went over with the type of load that we deemed they would, find success with, and we let them train. So maybe we're saying, we're going to do 5 reps of kettlebell deadlift. We're going to do 5 reps of push-up, then 5 reps of goblet squat, 5 reps of inverted row, and let's just circuit that for the next, 8 minutes. Take your time with it, and let's just see how they do with it. It does a couple things. We're not going to follow them around one-on-one. At this point, maybe one coach worked with them on the warm-ups, another one worked with them on deadlift, another one worked with them on hinge, whatever, depending on how busy we are. Then when they do this circuit, they experience more of like zone coaching. So when they're doing, kettlebell deadlift, maybe they do that on like our back floor where the kettlebells are, and Todd's over there, so he's coaching them. Then for their push-ups, they, go out onto like the turf, and Tommy happens to be over there. So he coaches them through that, or at least is watching in case they need coaching. Depending on where they are, different people are working with them. They circuit through that. If they were someone that in their consultation really said that conditioning was important to them and we have enough time, then we'll do some type of a self-limiting circuit. So maybe, battling ropes or like some med ball slams or like whatever it may be. We'll give them a little bit of a taste of that. And again, if the time is there, we do that with most people. If their resting heart rate was like, yeah, we can push this person a little bit. And especially if that was one of their goals. And it does a couple things. We get to see how they are under a little bit of fatigue. It also gives us a chance to experiment with some conditioning variables that we can take notes on and make our job of writing their program even easier. The biggest thing is that all of this allows them to experience the semi-private feel of things, and they get to have fun while they're here. After we get through all that, and really all throughout, do they have any questions or concerns? Let's make sure we get those addressed. Did they get their welcome email? And that welcome email is going to have links for scheduling. So making sure that even if, if they're the type of person who's like, I got it, but I didn't really read it. Well, that's where your links are to schedule. Make sure they know that. Do they understand the flow of the first training day? We'll talk them through that. We'll go over how we file programs, our daily folder versus our complete folder. If it's just a regular day on the program and they finish the day, it goes in the daily folder. If that was their last day on that program at all, it's going to go in the complete folder, but they're also going to fill out this back of program questionnaire, and they're going to have a chat with the coach. If it's their end of block, then they're going to actually fill out a different questionnaire, and they're going to schedule some type of a sit down, which doesn't need to literally be a sit down. It might be a phone call, it might be an email series, or it could be coming in and doing a full sit down to go over end of block. If you're really curious about that stuff, hang tight. We're going to have a lot more information coming out about that in coaching with Todd in just a little bit here. The most important thing is that we take notes on all of this. So you can see here for this guy, Bob, that trains with us, notes about his hip hinge, worked through the entire hip hinge progression, settled on kettlebell deadlift with 3 board, 16 kilo is what he did just for training that day. It doesn't mean that was his max. It's absolutely not his max, but just that he was comfortable training there and learning the movement. Goblet squat looked really good, 12 kilos. Push, did modified push-ups, the second hole, which is really low. And then inverted rows, second hole when they start to get close together. So that's probably like, on our racks, it's like 11, but still really low. Pull inverted row looked good. Notes, really good first day. He's happy to be here, wants to feel stronger, feels like he's been on physical downside the past few years. So this would be things that Bob said to the coaches that were working with him. They chat at the end and make sure they take notes of all this stuff just for any further information that may impact the program. Looking forward to learning so he can work out more intensely. Pretty cheery guy. Really appreciates us checking in on his nutrition. Feels like he knows what to do, just needs accountability. The circuit, they did kettlebell deadlift, modified push-ups, goblet squat, inverted row for 5 reps each, and the weights that he used are right there. Makes it pretty easy to write their first program. It goes into their folder. Everything pretty much we've talked up to this point gets compiled into their folder. That form's a little bit different because this is back in 2017. We've made some changes since then, but everything that we talked about for the most part is there. And their FMS is right there inside that folder. So when we go to write their program, we really have everything we need. Everything that you had in your Meet Your New Client drill, we have in this folder. So when we go to sit down and write their program, it's all right there. It's turned into their program. This is Bob's actual first program with us. That's the back of the program, like I talked about with those questionnaires. And most importantly, it gets turned into results. You can see Bob showing that he was at 212.4 pounds. He got down to 166.8. Most importantly, my dude dressed like this back whenever he first started with us. And today, dude's sleeves fell off. I don't care what time of year it is. He can find any excuse to wear a tank top. And that's what it's all about. Not tank tops, but results, right? If we're taking this information and we're putting together programs that aren't getting results, I don't know if it's wrong, but the information that you have from the Meet Your New Client drill and what I just showed you how we collect is gold when it comes to writing someone's program. So use this stuff. Pick it apart, pull it apart, do what you will with it, but look at what information you can grab and add to your process to make it that much easier when you onboard people to write their new programs. If you guys have questions, obviously Q&As are a great time to do that. And obviously the open forum. Shoot away, and we'll be happy to get those answered for you. So congratulations. If you've gotten through all these presentations, you rock. You listen to me drone on about this stuff, but don't make it a one-time thing. Go back and watch these multiple times over the remaining time in Strength Faction and get everything you can out of it. Just think, what's one thing when I watch it this time? What do I need to work on? Find that section, work on it, and just keep coming back to it and get everything that you can out of it. And, as always, if you guys have any questions, open forum, jump on the Q&As. We are here for you, and we will talk to you soon. Later.